What's going on, guys? It's Boxing Lowdown here, and welcome to episode 11 of the TBL podcast. And once again, of course, I'm delighted to be joined by my dad, Mr. Laurie from AFTV.
Yeah, man. How you doing, man? Yeah.
How you feeling? Because I know you wasn't really feeling too well. So how you feeling? It's not COVID, is it?
No, I certainly hope not. No, what happened was there was a little cold bug going around the office where I work. One or two people were snivelling a little bit and had colds, and I think I probably picked one up. Trying to be careful, obviously, wearing masks and distancing and opening windows and all. But at the end of the day, it's very hard not to contract these things if they're in the air. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, I'm actually not too bad. I've been drinking my water. I've been taking a few paracetamols. I've been resting. So yeah, I'm fine actually at the moment. Yeah,
that's good. It's good to hear. Obviously,
a couple of days out. You know what I mean?
As you know, obviously it's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day tomorrow. Before we get onto the boxing, so I'm not going to see you because obviously we're locked down in this T4 business. So this will be like last time virtually, I guess. At least we'll speak before Christmas, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So yeah, but I'm sure we'll talk tomorrow. But yeah, Merry Christmas, man. And Merry Christmas
sure
to all the people watching, man. All the people supporting the channel. Enough respect.
Yeah, big up to everybody supporting the channel, man. Big up to those that are in the live right now. If you're in the live, hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. I'm 2 followers away, 2 subs away from the 700 mark on my channel right now, my YouTube channel. So if I could get those 2 extra subs, that would mean a lot, man. Thank you guys in advance. And we're going to be talking boxing today, man. We're going to be doing what we do. We're going to be chopping it up. And for anybody that joins, anybody that joins a bit later on or whenever, add your comments. Me and my dad will respond to anything that you guys say. And we're just going to get it cracking, man. So let's speak about it. Last weekend, Canelo Alvarez against Callum Smith. You know what? I'd keep nearly butchering it. I nearly keep saying Liam Smith, even though they did fight. But obviously it was Callum Smith. Canelo against Callum Smith. Fantastic performance from Canelo, winning a 12-round decision. Pretty much nearly swept it on the cards, in my opinion. And impressive performance, man. I mean, we had him down as the favourite. We thought it was going to be very difficult for Callum Smith. But Canelo went in there, man. And, for me, what kind of surprised me more than anything was how quickly he was able to get inside. That was the thing for me. I knew he would eventually, because I was picking him to win. But it was a tentative opener from Callum Smith for me. Canelo worked his way in. And then from then on, he just had no respect. And he went on to pound his way to a victory.
Yeah, you know what, man? I'm going to keep it 100, man. I was disappointed in Callum Smith's performance, I have to say, man. I can't sugarcoat these things. We've been critical. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was critical of Anthony Yard. I was critical of Tunde in the corner. And I have to say, man, yes, Canelo's a great fighter, but Callum Smith's performance, I don't know, man. I was expecting a lot more. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't expecting him to win, but I thought he would be competitive. But I think you would agree with me that he wasn't competitive right from the get-go. I didn't give him a single round. He almost immediately was on the back foot, which again was disappointing. I'm thinking you're 6'3", against a guy 5'8". You're a career super middleweight. You must have been expecting Canelo to come forward. Why not meet him with some jabs and some resistance? I just think he gave up centre ground far too quickly. He was in a kind of passive type of mindset from the start, and he didn't really get. I mean, the only thing you can really say for Callum is that he went the distance. You know what I mean? So I think, to be honest with you, Liam gave Canelo a better fight when he fought him a few years back. I mean, I was disappointed. And then there was, again, a bit like Anthony Yard and Tunde, there was no real urgency in the corner. I couldn't quite get the game plan that he was trying to put over to Callum. You know what I mean? It was a pretty lackluster performance, man. I don't know, man. Maybe, who knows what happened? Maybe, maybe he was a bit nervous. Maybe the occasion got to him. I don't know, man. But Yeah, I was disappointed. I was disappointed.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I was surprised, man, at the first round. I mean, it was quite a tentative opener from Smith. And you know what? After that first round, my friend, who we talk boxing regularly with, he messaged me after that first round and he said to me, "This fight's over." Like, he said it straight away. No, he said it because he was just so surprised with how easily Canelo was able to work his way inside. And then Smith wasn't punching with enough authority for me. And he was really tearing into Joe Gallagher, my friend was. He was like, I'm disappointed with his tactics. We've seen over the last couple of weeks before that how important the jab was in boxing. You know, how successful it's been. We've seen Lyndon Arthur use it to great effect. We've seen Joe Joyce use it to great effect. We all know about how great the jab is. You would think 6'3" Callum Smith against a 5'8" Canelo. Surely, I mean, he did attempt to, you know, take the center of the ring first of all and dictate with the jab. But then obviously Canelo worked his way in. And then, I mean, I would have liked to have seen Callum Smith try to do it a bit more from the opener.
Yeah, I mean, he enjoyed some fantastic physical advantages in that fight, man. You know what I mean? Height, reach, you know what I mean? And he just didn't. I mean, I said before the fight last week that the problem with Callum Smith, he doesn't tend to use his height and fight tall the way he should do in fights. And we saw that with John Ryder. And it was the same here. He didn't look to establish his jab. And like I said, man, the mindset was passive, literally from round one. And I think the guy you spoke to there, he's made a very good observation, because I too came out when that first round ended. I was kind of thinking, well, unless he steps his game up in the next two rounds, man, I couldn't see nothing but a beatdown coming, you know what I mean? And so it proved. There was also a case for Joe Gallagher to pull him out of there, man, after about 9, 10, 11, because he just wasn't doing much. He was making a few token efforts. And listen, I don't want to be too critical of him, man, because Canelo is a great fighter, as we all know. But they must have known what they were up against, man. I mean, I think they needed to go in there with a mindset that, listen, we're coming here to win. And unless I'm mistaken, I never really got that from them. Did you?
No.
I saw a fighter in there that was coming to actually win. That was my perception of it. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't want to be too harsh on Callum, because he is a good fighter, world champion, very good amateur. So the kid can fight. But on this particular night, man, I think the mindset was wrong. I think, especially if you're going over to San Antonio, fighting Canelo in virtually his hometown, you have got to make a statement, man. You've got to make a statement of intent. You've got to show people that you're there to win. And I just didn't get that. The whole body language wasn't right from the off. So,
do you think it could have been? Do you think it could have been maybe what Callum Smith was referring to after the fight? And it wasn't excuses. He wasn't making excuses, but he referred to the fact that he feels that he might have outgrown the division. Maybe he felt a bit lackluster. He only had 4 weeks to really fully be tunnel vision focused on this fight. I'm sure he was in training anyway, but he only had the fight on 4 weeks' notice. Do you think maybe that added with the mix that he's not as strong as a super middleweight anymore? Do you think that might have played a factor?
Not really, no, because he's never said this before, has he? In fact, I've seen interviews with him where he says he makes the weight quite comfortably. No, and with regard to the 4 weeks, yes, it might have been a statistical fact that they had 4 weeks from the date the announcement was made. But let's be honest, man, him and Billy Joe Saunders had been in the running for this fight for some months. So it was a question of being prepared so that when you get the call, you know what I mean, you can go into full mode. So no, I'm not really going to accept either of those as excuses, man. I think it was a mentality thing. You know what I mean? I think that they went there and did they truly believe that they were going to come out of there with the win? The performance that they put on that night suggested otherwise, if you ask me. Yeah. And like I said, you know what I mean? I can only go with what I saw. You know what I mean? I can't be critical of Anthony Yard and Tunde 1 week. Be critical of Lomachenko when he fought Teofimo, but then not have the same energy towards British fighters, you know what I mean, or other fighters. So, yeah, I was disappointed.
What do you make of some of the? I jumped online straight after the fight, and what do you make some of the comments from mainly British fighters or people online that were from the UK, other play areas as well, suggesting that Canelo possibly was on the juice. Tony Bellew, for one, came out, which I thought was, a bit ironic, because I'm not saying that he's a cheat, of course, but I know how much he is against cheats, but I don't see the same energy that he used on Canelo as he does to other fighters. Now, he said something like, basically his tweet was in reference about Canelo could be on something, the way how he battered Callum Smith that way. Saw other guys there as well. Josh Taylor said it. Quite a few people online were saying it, just like, yeah, Canelo's probably on the juice. And it kind of reminded me of when, well, to be fair, Canelo has been busted. So there is, there is a rightful cause for people to be suspicious. But it's similar to when Pacquiao was in his prime and he was blowing people out at welterweight, literally like a steam train. And it's similar to Canelo, the way how he knocked out Kovalev, battered Callum Smith, walked through him. I'm seeing a lot of people make those sort of references like, boy, man, is he on the juice or what? What do you think about that?
You know what? I actually have some empathy with what these guys are saying about Canelo. I mean, a couple of weeks ago on your show, you asked me to list my top 5 pound for pound. And if you remember at the time, I omitted Canelo from that list to some surprise. And I explained at the time, the reason why I omitted him from my top 5 is that he's a 2 times drug cheat. All right. So is there a cloud of suspicion that hangs over Canelo's head? Absolutely. But this is the problem I've got with people like Tony Bellew, Josh Taylor, and certain other fighters over here. Keep that same energy, people.
That's what I said.
Tyson Fury's a convicted drugs cheat as well, and I've never heard any of you lot talking about him. You know what I mean? So for you to come out now and start calling out Canelo, I can't really take you, man, serious. Because the guy that all of you, man, the Josh Taylors, the Tony Bellews and people like that, you're waxing lyrical about Tyson Fury. Well, he's a convicted drugs cheat himself. Why are you not saying anything about him? And this is that double standard that kind of irks me a little bit, you know what I mean? But in reference to Canelo, yeah, absolutely. I think there's a big cloud of suspicion over him, you know what I mean? And yes, him going through the weights is reminiscent of Pacquiao, although to be fair to Pacquiao, the suspicion's been there, but I don't think he's actually failed.
He hasn't been caught.
Yeah,
well, he hasn't been busted. I don't want to say caught.
Yeah, so we need to be a bit careful, or not just me, but anyone out there calling out Pacquiao's name. I remember a little while ago he wanted to sue Floyd, didn't he, and some of the people around Floyd for suggesting that he was a drugs cheat. But there's been suspicions around Pacquiao for years, yeah. But Canelo, we can be a bit more affirmative about Canelo because he has actually been caught twice. You know what I mean? So yes, I do have those concerns about him. But hey, man, they took the fight. You know what I mean? So
that was going to be my next point, because where'd you lay the blame with Joe Gallagher then? Because I was speaking to someone on Twitter and they were telling me, yeah, Canelo's this. And I was like, look, I'm not arguing your opinion. Like, you're within your right to say this. Like, I'm not arguing it. And you have foundation to your argument. So I'm not dismissing your argument. All I was saying is what you said about keep the same energy for your favorite fighter as well. And also, where do we lay the blame with Joe Gallagher on this and the rest of the team? Because you knew that you only had 4 weeks to put Callum Smith in there. Like, all the people around you, like Tony Bellew and that, are now suddenly referencing Canelo as, yeah, he could be on the juice. Didn't Joe Gallagher have that in his mind? Or was he just thinking about the bag, you know?
Yeah, listen, they didn't have to take the fight, did they? They could have popped up and said, you know what I mean? But, you know, morals and that in boxing are very tenuous, man. You know what I mean? It's very kind of strange that, you know, somebody can be on that moral high ground 1 minute, and then when they get the offer of the bag, all of a sudden, you know what I mean, they'll eschew that moral high ground that they had previously. So, and with regard to the 4 weeks, like I said, yes, statistically, you may have got the call 4 weeks ago. But let's be honest, man, these guys are professional fighters, and anyone in boxing would have known that the two opponents that were being mentioned for Canelo's next fight, and this is going way back, would have been either Billy Joe Saunders or Callum Smith. Everybody knew that. So I'm not sure if I can really take too much store out of that 4 weeks to prepare stuff, because they would have known that that's the direction they were going to go. And once Billy Joe had come outright and said, no, I'm not going to take the fight because it's too short notice, then Callum Smith was the #1 front runner for that fight. So I just think that on the night, man, I kind of question, and I listen, I don't like to criticize fighters and trainers too much, because I know they've got a very difficult job. But I'm just looking at it and trying to be honest, and I'm saying, did Joe Gallagher and Callum Smith really truly believe that they were going to go there and win? You know what I mean? Because I must admit, I did not get that impression. Much like when Crawford fought Lomachenko, it was a similar type of thing, you know? Obviously, Callum Smith never got knocked out. He was trying, but the belief wasn't there, you know what I mean? I'm not calling him a coward or anything like that. I'm not saying he quit, because obviously he fought through to the end, and he had a particularly bad arm injury. So he had to show some toughness and some resilience in there to get through the 12. But I'm saying to you and the people who are watching this show, I didn't see enough of a mentality in there that suggested that they'd come to win. I didn't see it, if I'm being honest.
We're not giving Canelo enough credit.
Yeah, well, listen, Canelo is a great fighter, man. And he did what Canelo does. You know what I mean? He worked his way inside. It didn't take him long to get inside, started bashing away at the body. He was actually out jabbing Callum Smith, which I found that was strange to me. Did you not think that?
Yeah, that's the shorter man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, this guy's 5'8" and he's out jabbing a guy that's 6'3". I mean, that should never have happened, really. You know what I mean? And that happened fairly, that pattern was established early in the fight. So it's for those reasons that I just think that it was a disappointing performance. And I heard, well, Callum Smith's brothers, after the fight, they were interviewed and they said he was crying his eyes out in the dressing room. Mm. That would suggest that what I'm saying has some element of truth about it, that maybe he was disappointed in his own performance. Yeah. He's actually come out post-fight also and said that Canelo didn't hit as hard as he thought he would. Is that right?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Boxing Social.
So if that is the case, then why did you not press the action a bit more then? I mean, if you're boxing somebody, right, and they're touted to be this big puncher, and then you feel his punch. I mean, listen, I've boxed and you've boxed, and you feel the guy's punch, and you think, oh, hang on a minute, I could take this. It's not as it's not as hard as I thought it was going. Surely that would give you some kind of encouragement, wouldn't it?
Well, it did for Canelo, because he was marching forward throughout the whole fight.
Yeah. So why was he not trying to establish your jab? Why was you not being a bit more aggressive, or, you know what I mean, showing a bit more resistance? Yeah. But yeah, it was a weird performance, man. Yeah, weird performance.
Let's talk about what's next then, because you look at Callum Smith first of all. Let's go to him now. If he does make the move up in weight to 175, it'll be a new challenge for him. He's got the frame to carry the weight for sure. He's a quality operator. Let's not take that away from him. But 175, man, light heavyweight. You got some killers up there, man. Yeah, man. Like on the domestic scene and on the world scene. I mean, you've got on the domestic scene, you've got Buatsi, you've got Johnson, you've got Lyndon Arthur now. You've still got Yard. You know, you've got those guys, and then on the world scene, you've got monsters like Beterbiev, Bivol. You know, like there's some killers at light heavyweight, man. Aleida Alvarez is still there, Kovalev there, and so on. Pascal's still floating around. How do you see Callum Smith as a light heavyweight?
Well, first of all, you're right, man. 175 at the moment is what you might call a murderer's row, man. I mean, it's like there's some real killers there. So, but he's hinted that he might move up. I think that's probably a good thing for him to do. But like you said, man, it's very competitive there, both here and abroad. I would imagine he'll have a couple of fights to get acclimated to the weight. Before taking on anyone of real substance. And I think he will target the domestic scene first, maybe European, and then see how the belts pan out. Because, you know, in boxing, there's so many belts that who knows how it's going to shake up in a year's time, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that makes sense. The only thing The only problem he might have is for motivation, because he's been to the top of the mountain, hasn't he? In terms of winning world titles, he won the WBSS. So for him to start again at a new weight, he might find that a bit challenging, to be honest.
Yeah, he's 30 years old now, achieved what he's wanted to achieve. He's not an old fighter. 30, he can still go on for a few more years. I think maybe the new challenge might be what he needed. But again, it's like he's infested with sharks, that division, man. You're gonna have to plan his route carefully, in my opinion.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
coming off a defeat like that.
Yeah, because the problem with the defeat that he had the other day, it was that it was a poor performance. So I think his confidence would have taken a bit of a blow. So if you're going to dip your toe in the water at 175, you need to be careful who you fight next. Maybe target some non-punchers, but then even then, you don't really want guys you're just going to blow out of there, because, like I said, you've got to get acclimated to the weight. So you're going to need a few rounds. So they're going to have to choose his opponents carefully. And then, like we said, if you've been to the top of the mountain, won world titles and made a lot of money, which I'm sure he's done, are you going to want to virtually start from scratch again? So it's a difficult one for Callum Smith, this.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Be interested to see what Canelo does as well, because, I mean, his post-fight comments in the interview was that he's looking to become undisputed super middleweight champion. And listen, man, this is the sort of talk that I like to hear. Like, you know, you can't fault the guy for what he's doing at the moment, regardless on you might have your thoughts about him. But in terms of what he's going for, do you know what I mean? Like trying to become undisputed at another weight, then like I really do applaud that. And I like that mission. Like any fighter that tries to be the undisputed champion in their weight class, then I really do like appreciate that. So Canelo obviously has two options now to become undisputed. He needs to fight both of them eventually. But there's Billy Joe Saunders, who holds the WBO title, and there's Caleb Plant, who holds the IBF. So it's looking like he'll choose that route next. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I always like to see fighters unify wherever possible. There's a lot of talk about him fighting Billy Joe Saunders. I think that's a very winnable fight for Canelo. Caleb Plant, though, that might present a different type of obstacle. You know what I mean? A guy that's in his prime, he's confident, he's unbeaten. So is Billy Joe, by the way. But Caleb Plant looks to be a very good fighter, and I'm sure he would make for a good challenge. But if I'm being honest, I would have to say I would favour Canelo over both of those guys. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think Caleb Plant will give him a harder fight. I think Billy Joe would be a competitive fight. But I could see Canelo overcoming both of those opponents, if I'm being honest. And then again, you've got to factor in some of the politics that goes with Canelo's fights as well. Both Billy Joe and Caleb Plant, they have to know that when they're fighting Canelo, man, they've got to knock him out to win. And I don't see either of those guys being big enough punchers to do that. And you've also got to say that Canelo has one of the best chins in boxing. He's also got very good defense, but he's definitely got one of the best chins in boxing. So I can't see either of those guys putting a real dent in him. They're going to try and outbox him. And I just think that with Canelo, we've seen it in previous fights, man. For them to get a decision over Canelo, it's going to be extremely difficult. Let's put it like that.
Got a comment here from Jamie Payne. Big up, bro. He's been following the channel for a while. Always leaves comments, so thank you for support. He's put, who's Canelo got to beat to get the credit? Now, I've just highlighted what I said. If he becomes undisputed at 168 for me, that's the direction I'd like to see him going. What about you? I mean, he's already got my credit.
Yeah, I mean, this question from Jamie, I'm at a loss to listen. I've said that he's a great fighter, great to watch as well. Yes, I raised the issue of the PEDs, but then you can't get away from that. That is facts. You know what I mean? And like I said, with regards to this last performance, Canelo has got the credit. It's just that I felt that I was expecting more from Callum Smith, and I'm not the only one, man. I mean, if you listen to some of the American YouTubers and stuff, they were far more scathing. You know what I mean? They were they were using some other adjectives that I won't even repeat here. You know what I mean? They were very scathing of the opponent. But I think we're entitled to criticize Callum Smith's performance because we know that he can do better than that. Did you not think that? Is it just me? I mean, when you watch that fight, was you not thinking, well, I expected him to, you know what I mean, give off himself a little bit more and be a bit more attack-minded and a bit more proactive rather than just backing up and leaning on the ropes and letting Canelo hit him for half the fight? You know what I mean? So,
like I said, I thought I've always had Canelo as the favourite, as you did as well. But I just thought that, I didn't think it'd be that easy for Canelo.
Yeah. So in answer to Jamie, yes, man, listen, man, I don't know how it's coming over, but I give Canelo a lot of credit. I was just pointing out my disappointment with Callum Smith on the night. I wasn't expecting Callum to beat him. I'd just like to add that. But I was expecting a more competitive fight. Now, you could argue and say, well, Canelo's that good that he makes fight world champions like Callum Smith look uncompetitive in a fight. Okay, I can take that on board. But I would also say, man, that the mindset of Callum Smith and the lack of urgency in the corner gave me some cause for concern.
Okay, I think that's been answered. Let's move on then. And we'll move on to the title of the video. And I'll work my way to that now. Because obviously in the crowd, there was Errol Spence, who was there. And he was interviewed for DAZN, who were just like, he was obviously, with the fight being in Texas, Errol Spence is a native from Texas. He's going to go there, watch the fight. And I have to admit, I was disappointed in some of the comments that I heard coming from Errol Spence that night. They were speaking about, was he going to fight Crawford and so on. And then Errol Spence was kind of not really paying much attention to that question and more looking at the Canelo situation, saying that he was interested in that fight. Then the guy tried to bring up Crawford again. Errol Spence was like, well, I've said, about this, what he needs to accept, otherwise it's not happening. And listen, man, I don't know how you feel, but at the moment, I'm going to call it out. At the moment, he don't want that sort of smoke with Crawford. From what I see, he don't seem to want that sort of smoke with Crawford. He don't have the same energy to me as he does towards other fighters. You've got a guy there, Terence Crawford. He holds a belt. He's undefeated, pound for pound, right up there with Canelo. And all of a sudden, you're looking towards a Canelo fight when you've got this guy right here in front of you. What is going on here?
Yeah, you're right, man. Listen, when I saw that and the way it all transpired with him talking about wanting to fight Canelo, I thought to myself, this is everything that's wrong with boxing at the moment. You know what I mean? Yeah. You've got a guy there, Errol Spence, very good fighter. He holds belt at welterweight. But you've got another guy in the division that everybody wants to see you fight. And to all intents and purposes, you seem to be avoiding the fight. You know what I mean? Why are you showing up at Canelo's fight for? He didn't show up at yours. You know what I mean? Your natural rival is Terence Crawford. All this stuff about you're going to jump up 2 weights to fight Canelo, it's absolutely ridiculous. And as much as I like Errol Spence, man, it's so disappointing to see what's going on here. You know what I mean? You're a welterweight, yeah? Okay, I can understand if you want to move up 1 weight to 154 because he's a big welterweight. But fighting Canelo, please do me a favor. He would wash you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Listen, Errol Spence couldn't take out Mikey Garcia. And he hit him with everything. I mean, he'd come out with his stuff after the fight that I didn't want to take him out. Nonsense. If you could have taken him out, you would have done. He couldn't stop Sean Porter. You couldn't stop Danny Garcia. And listen, there's no embarrassment in that because these are top fighters with good chins. But if you couldn't stop these guys at welterweight, how the hell you gonna put a dent in Canelo at middleweight? It's just nonsense. You know what I mean? Nonsense. The guy you should be fighting is Terence. That is one of the biggest fights in boxing right now. And for you to be chatting stuff about Canelo, it's just it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Seriously, somebody needs to take these guys to one side and say, listen, man, the stuff that you guys are doing, this is why boxing has got such a bad name. The best don't fight the best. And when I heard him talking about fighting Canelo, right, it was reminiscent of what Amir Khan did to Kell Brook. Remember that? A couple of years ago, Amir Khan, fight being tapped with Kell Brook. So what does he do? He says, no, I'm fighting Canelo. He got absolutely washed. And the same thing would happen to Errol Spence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's the same principle. You'd rather get knocked out by a middleweight than you would taking on the guy in your own division where there's a natural fight that everybody wants to watch. You know what I mean? It's clear to me that you're avoiding Terence Crawford, 100%. You know what I mean?
I didn't want to say it at first, but now I have to say it. After Saturday night, man, I have to say it now.
This is a duck with a capital D, man. You know what I mean? And I have to say, man, it's kind of following that whole PBC type of mantra. You know what I mean? That same type of philosophy that a lot of their fighters seem to have. With all this talk of A-side and he's got to take 60, he's got to take 40, and I'm going to take 60. You know what I'd like to see Terence Crawford do? I'd like to see him call his bluff and say, you know what? Okay, I'll take the 64. I'll take the 40. You have the 60. We fight. As long as there's a rematch clause in the contract that if I beat you, the next time we fight, the roles are reversed, and see what he says there. Because no one don't want. Do you want to see Errol Spence versus Canelo?
No chance.
Errol Spence.
No, that doesn't interest me one bit.
He'd get washed. And listen, I'm a fan of Errol Spence. I am a fan of his, but I'm so disappointed with this kind of diva stuff that these guys are pulling. The natural fight is you versus Crawford. Clean up that weight class first before you even start talking about other fighters. That is the fight that everybody wants to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally agree. And everyone in the chat right now, let me know what you think in the comments about, you know, whether you agree with what me and my dad are saying here. We've got a comment here from Ian Hamilton. Big up, bro. He's put, I'm a fan of Spence, but the fact that he's more bothered about getting beat by someone levels above him rather than fight his rival goes to saying something about the man. And look, I agree, Ian. You're totally right. But the thing is, Errol, you know, his resume at welterweight is very impressive. You know, he's defeated Sean Porter. He's defeated Mikey Garcia. He's defeated Danny Garcia, Lamont Peterson, Kell Brook. He's got a strong the best resume. He's the number one guy at 147 pounds for a reason. But the energy that I see towards Terence Crawford is not the same. It's not the same. It never has been. When they were face-to-face that time a couple of years ago, man, Crawford was the one that was pushing it, in my opinion. Yeah. And then throughout, I've just seen, it just looks to me that Crawford wants it more. Like Errol Spence didn't call him out after the fight. He's always kind of dancing around it, saying, well, I can go through this guy, oh, he ain't got the money. I'm just like, come on, man. Yeah. That's just my opinion. I'm just disappointed.
It's preposterous. He's not going to beat Canelo. He's not going to beat Canelo. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. And you talking about going up 2 weights to fight a guy like that is just ridiculous. You got a challenge in your own weight class that the whole world wants to see. You know what I mean? You're actually denying the fans a great fight with this nonsense. You know what I mean? I haven't met one person online or elsewhere that says that they want to see Spence versus Canelo. He's not going to beat Canelo. He's not going to knock out Canelo. And he's certainly not going to beat him on points. So I just found that ridiculous. Like I said, it was very reminiscent of when Amir Khan was blatantly ducking Kell Brook. This is exactly what he did. He took a fight with Canelo. People were saying, oh, he was brave. He wasn't brave. He was running from Kell Brook. And then he was probably reasoning, well, if I get knocked out, it's a fight I'm not expected to win. And people can't say that I'm scared to take on challenges because I've taken on Canelo. Not only that, he got very well paid for that fight, apparently. And it's the same thing here. Errol Spence versus Canelo does nothing for nobody outside of his immediate team. You know what I mean? And even the guys in his team should be sitting him down and saying, listen, man, let's get... If you beat Crawford and beat Crawford impressively, then I'll start to entertain the ideas of you moving up. But you want to go from 147 to 160 to take on a guy like Canelo, please.
Well, Canelo's at 168. And the funny thing is Canelo was like, when he was asked about Errol Spence, he sort of brushed it off as well. He was just like, nah, it's not on my radar right now. I'm trying to go for the champions at 168. Yeah. I'm not looking at Errol Spence. How embarrassing is that?
Why would he? I mean, if you're Canelo, you're not going to get no credit in the bank for beating a blown up welterweight, are you?
No.
You know what I mean? So I can understand why he'd be reticent about that, although he's probably thinking it's easy work for him. And then to make matters worse as well, although I like Errol Spence, he's not the hardest person in the world to hit. Defense is probably the worst or the least effective part of his game. And then you're going to fight someone like Canelo. It's absolutely preposterous. And to see him turning up at the fight and calling out Canelo, it was just so cringeworthy, man. It was seriously, it was ridiculous. It really is.
What do you think of the fact that some people, now I'm playing devil's advocate here, some people will say, okay, Spence is talking about the splits, but so is Crawford. Crawford has come out and said before that he believes he should get the larger split. So are we being a bit unfair on Spence when we kind of label that on him? You know, because Crawford has said it in the past. Or do you think he's just responding to what like Errol Spence is saying? I think they're both kind of, I don't know. What do you think?
If we go down the years in boxing, man, you know what I mean? The Leonard Hearns, Leonard Hagler, Duran Hearns, Duran Hagler, people like that. They would have all had to enter into negotiations. There's always going to be. I remember Floyd talking some years ago about when he fought Oscar De La Hoya. At that time, that was the biggest fight in boxing. And Floyd always says, I had to take the lower end of the pay, but I reasoned that if I beat Oscar, then I become the man. I'd like to see more people adopt that mindset now, you know what I mean? And all this talk about on the A side and 60-40, 70-30 and all that, you know what I mean? It's just, the two sides just need to get round the table and make the fight happen.
Agree.
And I think we're seeing that with AJ and Fury, to be fair to them. There seems to be a willingness to make the fight happen. So
well, we were gonna get onto that, but let's get onto it now, actually. I was gonna get onto that later on in the show, but now you've mentioned it.
Yeah.
AJ and Fury, a positive interview there with Anthony Joshua this week. I was kind of getting on to him a couple of weeks ago. Not that I ever thought that he was afraid of Fury. I don't think that at all. I don't think a lot of people think that. I was more kind of like disappointed he didn't call him out afterwards. But to be fair to Anthony Joshua, he addressed it in that interview on IFL on this week. And he's had some positive, he said some positive things. He said that the teams are in talks. He sent his team out to go and get the job done. They're over there in America right now, talking to Bob Arum and everyone else. They're over here as well in the UK, talking to Frank Warren and everybody else. So it's looking positive that that fight can happen next year, man. Did you catch that interview?
Yeah, I saw the interview, and I've seen Eddie Hearn talking, and you know, I mean, there does seem to be a willingness. Tyson Fury obviously wants to fight. AJ wants to fight, and the energy that they're bringing forth is a completely different energy to Crawford and Spence, especially Spence. As you quite rightly said, it's obvious that Terence Crawford wants to fight more than Errol Spence. I don't know if they're trying to age this guy out or whatever they're trying to do, but to me, Errol Spence, with that typical PBC kind of diva-ish attitude to everything, are just talking nonsense. There should be a willingness amongst the two parties to sit down and make the fight happen. Once they get round the table, I'm sure they can thrash out the terms. But it just seems to me that Errol Spence doesn't even want to get round the table. And this little thing that he's concocted with the Canelo thing, to me, is just a ruse to get out of fighting Crawford. It really is. That's how I've read it anyway. Because you've got a rival in your division. You know what I mean? Just make the call, the two parties sit down. Yes, there is going to be one side that might get slightly better terms than the other, but I'm sure that they can work it out in the end if there is a willingness to do so. And the difference between Spence and Crawford and AJ and Fury is that unlike Spence and Crawford, AJ and Fury and the two counts are willing to sit down and make the fight happen.
Yeah.
You see?
And I think that it's looking positive.
Yeah.
I mean, looking positive. They both want it. Like I said, from that interview as well, it seems like that all the necessary people are in talks to make that happen. Would you be disappointed if it's probably not, if we're being honest and realistic. The first fight, if it does take place, it probably won't take place in the UK. Are you at that point now where you just want to see it? You don't care if it's abroad? Or are you thinking, nah, we really need this over here for the UK?
No, listen, I would prefer for the fight to be over here in front of fans. But we all know with what's happening with COVID and all the rest of it, that that's unlikely to happen. So if they fight abroad, I don't have any problem with that at all. The main thing is the two guys will share a ring and the best man will win on the night. And there'll probably be a rematch clause in there. So they could well fight again, especially if there's the fight is close or there's an element of controversy or whatever. You know what I mean? But at least these two guys, man, are willing to put it on the line. What Errol Spence in particular is indulging in, man, I just find it's almost anti-boxing, this stuff is. Because it's the obvious fight to make. And then you're there talking about Canelo. Canelo's almost laughing when he was, did you see when he was asked? He literally had a smile on his face.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what's up with these guys calling me out, man? You know what I mean? I just thought it was cringeworthy, man. I was really disappointed in Errol Spence. Really was, because I thought he had more about him than that, you know what I mean? But this is what we're seeing in boxing at the moment, man. This is why we're getting YouTubers enter the space and, you know, think they can come in and, you know, make demands and stuff like that because of stuff like this, you know?
I was just about to say that. Like, should boxers, because you see a lot of people complain, this Jake Paul, man, who's this guy disrespecting? But then you got to looking at your own end as well. Got to clean up your own house as well. I'm not referencing any particular fighter in general, but I'm just saying, man, like, if these guys are allowed to come in and, you know, do what they're doing and attracting a particular crowd and getting, you know, and it's getting on the nerves of a lot of fighters, well, we all need to do our bit. We all need to do our bit and try and...
This is what, because boxing has allowed these guys to come into the sport and now they're almost dictating. You know what I mean? And it's people like Errol Spence that are allowing this kind of thing to happen. When you're seeing the best not fight the best, people get disillusioned and then the sport just gets watered down and all of a sudden it just becomes a freak show, which is what is in danger of happening at the moment, you know? So, yeah, man, Errol Spence and his team, man, they just need to stop this, man. It's ridiculous.
Another comment here from Ian Hamilton. He's put, I'm convinced that AJ versus Fury happens next year after watching the AJ interview. This will be this country's biggest event unless England win the Euros. Yeah, I forgot England win. I forgot that's next year as well, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, how big? I mean, you've been watching boxing for a long time, as have I have, but you've been watching it longer than me. This fight is clearly the biggest fight in British boxing history, isn't it? It'll go down as huge. Easily.
You know what I mean? And like I said, credit to both guys for wanting to get the fight on. They realise that they're at that stage in their careers now where their paths have crossed and we need to see the fight. And the best man will win on the night. So
let's get your early prediction on that one. I've seen a lot of people float their ideas around as to who they think would win, but I'm sure there's some people in the chat here that would like to know who you think would win. Your opinion might change up until the fight, but as of right now, your early thoughts, how do you see the favourite? Like, who have you got?
Well, if I'm being honest, I would have to say the favourite will be Tyson Fury. I have no problem with saying that. I've met AJ a couple of times and I like him as a person and a fighter, so I would like him to win. And I think he can win. And styles make fights. So just because Tyson Fury had an excellent performance against Wilder is not AJ. And AJ's made a lot of improvements to his game over the last couple of years. And the way he's evolving now, I genuinely think he has a real good chance of beating Tyson Fury. He's got more than a puncher's chance. He can box. And I see a great fight, man, a competitive fight, a hard fight. And it's literally a 50-50, although I'm slightly leaning towards AJ because of his...
Tyson Fury, you mean?
No, I'm leaning towards AJ, although I can see why Tyson Fury would be the favourite in many people's eyes. Okay.
Well, speaking of Tyson Fury, he was the Ring Magazine. He was the co-fighter of the year alongside Teofimo Lopez this year. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much into it because next week's show will be our last show of the year. And then we could do our own sort of like, you know, pick our own fighter of the year, knockout of the year, upset of the year, etc. But what's your original thoughts on that with Fury and Teofimo Lopez being the co-fighter of the year? If I quickly say my piece on it, I can understand it, definitely. I mean, Tyson Fury had a tremendous win this year against Deontay Wilder. The magnitude of that fight, what was on the line, all the drama going into that fight, biggest fight of the year. So the way how Fury won it, I can understand why he's the number one as well. But then you've got Teofimo Lopez, like Maverick, young fighter up and coming, called out Lomachenko, who was considered by many to be pound for pound number one. He beat him, lived up to his potential. So he's the co-fighter of the year as well. So when I look at it like that, I can understand why the ring have got them both joint. But then I think that there are some other fighters out there that could have been mentioned as well. Like Jermell Charlo, for example. I thought he's had a very good year. He's pretty much cleaned up the division. I think he needs one more belt. But I think he's had a very good year. The way how he knocked his opponent out as well, very impressive for me. Joe Smith Jr.'s had a good year. He's had a very good year, So yeah, I don't really necessarily disagree with that. But yeah, just my thoughts on it. What's yours?
Yeah, I would probably opt for Teofimo Lopez, given the fact that he's a young fighter. He stepped up to fight Lomachenko, who at that time was on many people's pound for pound lists, probably number one. And he was impressive that night. He went into the fight as a big underdog, and he came through and he won. So yeah, I'll probably lean towards him.
Yeah. If you put a gun to my head to say, oh, you had to pick one out of them two, then I would say Teofimo Lopez, yeah. But I can understand why Fury's there. With considering the manner of the victory, what was on the line, the significance it had in boxing. Yeah, I can understand it. But I'd say, yeah, I'd probably lean towards Teo if it was my opinion. But I've got no argument with them having a co-fighter of the year. I think it's only the 5th time that the Ring magazine have actually done that in their history. So yeah, just goes to show it was great achievements by both men. But obviously in our show next week, our last one of the year, we can, have a proper sit down and talk about who was the fighter of the year, who had the knockout of the year, all that.
The having a co-fighter of the year is a bit of a cop-out, to be honest. There must have been a criteria that you could have established one man as the fighter of the year. To me, co-fighter of the year is nah.
What, is it that obvious that Teo had it above Tyson Fury in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because like I said, Lomachenko was on the pound for pound list number one in a lot of people's opinion. Teofimo was stepping up. He was a young fighter with potential, and if you remember, he had that great win against Komi, but the fight before that, he fought a Japanese guy, Nakakami, was it? And he didn't look that impressive. Yeah. So most people felt that Lomachenko would probably end up schooling him, and the opposite was the case. So for him to go in there and pull a performance out like that, to me, you got to say was the fighter of the year.
Or the outright fighter of the year.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Jermell Charlo could have been an outsider for it. Inoue could have been up there, you know what I mean? You can even made a case for Manny Pacquiao with that win over Furman back at 40 years old. So
Errol Spence coming back from that car crash looking as good as he did.
Yeah. Tyson Fury, of course, that was a very good win. But yeah, I'd go for Teofimo.
Okay, well, as we've got about 10 minutes left, and before we close out, I just want to say to everybody again that's in the chat, thank you for being here. If you haven't hit that sub button, make sure you hit that sub button, trying to get to 700 before the end of the year. I think I got one sub. I saw a notification on the phone come through. So big up you, whoever that was. I need to get to 700, man. So hit that sub button, like the video, share the video. And as we close out, got about 10 minutes left. I want to speak about Triple G's performance against your boy, the Polish guy. I'm not going to butcher his name. And I'm also want to talk about Craig Richards as well. Very good victory. So let's talk about Triple G first, man. That was a good win for him. I mean, I know we didn't expect too much from the opponent, but so it proved. It was an absolute mismatch, wasn't it?
Yeah, listen, I can't get excited about fights like this, man. You know what I mean? I just can't. I think if Triple G, my message to him is if you're going to stay in the game, fight people of note, man. You know what I mean? He's sort of hanging around hoping to get this third fight with Canelo, which I have to say, man, I don't know how you feel about it, but I don't really want to see a third fight between those two guys. We've seen 24 rounds. We know how it shapes up. He's not going to get a decision over Canelo. You know what I mean? There's other fighters out there that you could be fighting, Andre, Charlos, you know what I mean? People like that. You're fighting some guy that no one's never heard of. It's just so uninspiring, man. Again, it just doesn't make boxing look good.
Big up Volts UK. Sorry to interrupt you there. Big up Volts UK. He's left a comment here. He's put sub 700, so I must be at that 700 mark. Thank you very much, my man. Really appreciate that. Thank you. And he's put Oscar owns the Ring magazine. Yeah. But yeah, with the Ring magazine, I think because Fury and he's not with Golden Boys. He's with Top Rank.
Yeah.
Tio's with, so they're both Top Rank fighters, aren't they? But yeah, Oscar, he does own the Ring magazine. He does.
He does. Yeah.
But yeah, going back to what you just said there, that opponent was a mandatory. So should we give him a bit less stick for that? He's got to beat the guy to keep his belt, right?
Yeah, bro. How many other fighters?
Man.
You know what I mean? That division middleweight, there's some very good fighters in there, man. And if he, like I said, he's going to stick around in this sport. He's got to fight some meaningful names, some people who are going to challenge him. I mean, I didn't watch the whole fight, but I saw some of it on YouTube. It was very lackluster, man. I mean, he was, the guy offered no real threat at all. It was just one-way traffic. It's difficult to watch, to be honest. And I'm thinking that, like, he's having these fights to just about stay relevant in the hope that he'll get the call for the Canelo third fight. And I'm thinking, do we even want to watch? Do you want to, listen, seriously, do you want to watch that fight?
Well, I've said it loads of times. I'm not interested in the third fight.
He's had opportunities with Canelo. He's not going to beat Canelo, especially at this stage in his career. So my message to him is, you're going to stay around in boxing, man. Fight some proper guys. Otherwise, you know.
He did fight Devianchenko last time out, though, didn't he?
Yeah, and I thought he lost that fight. That's what I'm saying. You know, this is just so lackluster and uninspiring, and just does nothing for boxing. These times.
Who do you want to see him fight next? And anyone in the comments as well, feel free to let me know who you'd like to see Triple G fight next. You got Jamal Charlo. You got Demetrius Andrade, who was at the show. He was at the Canelo fight, actually. But who would you like to see him fight next, Triple G?
Well, you just said two names right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and even if you're not going to fight those two, I'm sure you can find someone better than this guy he fought the other day that no one had heard of. No one gave any chance. You knew it wasn't going to be, it was just going to be one-way traffic. And so it proved. And like I said, it was just a procession, really, wasn't it? You know what I mean?
Should we get war onto the IBF, though? For making him, how did he get mandatory in the first place, this guy?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's just not good for boxing at all, is it?
No.
Triple G has been a great fighter. He's obviously coming to the end of the twilight years now. And from his point of view, yes, fights like this can kind of make sense. Because like I said, he's just ticking over while he waits to see if he gets a call from Canelo. So that's his thing, yeah? But in terms of us, the fans, and boxing in general, it does nothing for the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my thoughts on that. Totally uninspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Triple G looked all right, but it's hard not to. And, you know, it was just like, I don't want to criticize his performance because he has been out for over a year as well. Have to put that in there. But yeah, the opponent, it was just not on. It wasn't enjoyable to watch. I'll be honest. I have to admit, when I was watching it, I was just like, I can't wait to do so I can go to bed.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Non-competitive. There wasn't even a hint of competitiveness in that fight from the moment you heard who he was fighting. Yeah. So it just does nothing for me, that type of stuff. You know what I mean? He would have fought better guys than that when he was coming up in the game several years ago. So why are you still fighting guys like that now? No,
yeah.
Jokes, absolute joke.
let's get on to the last point of the podcast this evening, and that was obviously to do with Craig Richards. Looked very good against Shakan Peters on the Friday night. How do you feel about that British light heavyweight champion? Come up the hard way, and he got a lot of well-earned plaudits online for sure. It was good to see, actually, because I've met him once. He just seems like a nice, humble individual. So happy for him. And I think you've met him once or twice, right? So what's your thoughts on that?
No, I was happy for him, man. Very good performance. In fact, going into this fight, he was probably the underdog, which is a little strange when you consider the two fighters' records. But a lot of people were high on Shakan Peters. So Craig was up against it, but he delivered, man. And even the guys who thought he was going to win probably didn't think he would win by a spectacular knockout, which he managed to pull off. So, yeah, man, good. And as we were saying earlier, the light heavyweight division in this country, man, is stacked.
Yeah.
How about Craig Richards versus my man Dan Aziz, man? That'd be a great fight.
Yeah, Dan Aziz, man. Yeah, for sure.
And Dan can box and he can punch. And I think that'd be a great fight. I know that him and Craig Richards have done a lot of sparring in the past, and I heard it was good competitive sparring. So yeah, man, I think Dan would like that fight. Not so sure if Craig would welcome it, to be honest, because he's already talking about European titles and stuff like that. But yeah, if they could get that fight on, that would be a great fight.
Should try and get Dan on here.
Yeah, man, you know, I'll try and do that. Yeah, Dan's a good friend of mine and we do keep in touch. So yeah, I'll do my best to make that happen as soon as I can. Yeah. Big
up Volt UK here in the chat. He's put Golovkin, I think he agrees with what you said here. He's put Golovkin will skedaddle after his next big payday. He's on the decline fast. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, listen, he's definitely not the most feared fighter as he was a few years back. Like I said to you earlier, I thought he lost to Deryevchenko. I thought he lost to Daniel Jacobs as well. He seems to be leading a bit of a charmed life. And like I said, if you're going to stick around in the sport, fight some meaningful people, man. You know what I mean? Digging out these guys who've got absolutely no chance, it just does nothing for the sport. So yeah, he is on the decline. He's definitely not the fighter he was. Still got a great chin, still hits hard. He's still relevant, I guess, but he's only going to be relevant if he's fighting people that have got a chance against him, not digging up like obscure guys with these so-called unbeaten records that we all know are not very good. He just does nothing for the sport at all.
Yeah, another comment here from Ian Hamilton. He's put, just want to say congratulations on the 700 subs. Glad to have done some fan streams and look forward to what Sweet Science brings us in 2021. Plus, I love this chat as well. It reminds me of me and my dad. Yeah, man, thank you, man. And yeah, Ian Hamilton has been on the streams before. He's been on Fan Talk before. So he has definitely helped. You know, he's been one of the early followers that I've had. So big up to him. Really appreciate your comment and for you being here. And yeah, thank you to everybody, man. That's allowed me to get to 700 subs. Next year, we're going to try and push for that 1,000 mark. But as of right now, man, I'll take the 700. I'm really happy with that. And I can only thank you guys for being interactive, supporting the channel and being there. You know, without you guys' help, wouldn't be where we are. So thank you for that. Another comment here from Volt UK. Big up, bro. He's put, I hope Lyndon Arthur gets a WBO title shot because the WBO belt is vacant at light heavyweight, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Canelo, he beat Kovalev and then he vacated the belt. So maybe Frank Warren might be able to, do you know what I mean? Did you see, you probably didn't, but Lyndon Arthur was in a music, like freestyle. He wasn't rapping, but he was in Bugsy Malone's freestyle. And they were sending some shots at Anthony Yard, man. Did you hear about that? You didn't hear about that?
I'll have to try and catch up with that, you know what I mean? But yeah, big up Lyndon, man. I hope he's enjoying his time in the limelight. You know what I mean? I hope he, I mean, this is what I was saying to you a couple of weeks ago, is that if I'm Lyndon, I'm not even sure I would pursue the Anthony Yard rematch because he might consider that's in the past now and he wants to move forward and try and secure some title shots elsewhere. I think that they will rematch again at some stage. But right now, if I was Lyndon Arthur's management team, I'd probably be looking to try and get at least a European title shot now.
Yeah, sure. Or maybe even a British shot. Maybe that'd be good.
Yeah.
I got another comment here, and it's from Volts UK again. He's put Andrade and Charlo will beat him soundly, I think. I have zero interest in Triple G Canelo 3.
Absolutely. Yeah. I haven't spoken. I know a lot of people in boxing, and I'm in various WhatsApp groups, and I communicate online with several people in boxing, and not one person I've spoken to has expressed an interest in watching a third fight between Canelo and Triple G. Yes, they were good, decent fights, but that ship sailed, man. You know what I mean? And we already know that Triple G is not going to get a decision over Canelo anywhere, anytime soon. So, you know, let some of those other guys who have been waiting for a shot at Canelo, let them get their chance. You've had yours twice. You couldn't beat him. You know what I mean? That chapter's done as far as I'm concerned, man.
At this stage, for me, it's more how Canelo beats him rather than if at this stage, man. And that's not disrespecting Triple G, but I just think he's kind of falling out of his prime while Canelo's still in his. So, and he hasn't beat him even before that. So, listen, I'm going to wrap that up.
The second fight, to me, wasn't even that close, to be honest. I had Canelo a clear winner.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that close. The first fight was close. Second fight wasn't. And like I said, we've seen 24 rounds. We don't need to see any more. We know who the better man is. So let one of the young guns coming up, let them get their opportunity. That's what this sport is supposed to be based on, isn't it? People getting the opportunity and fighting the best. So, you know, that's what we should be striving for. Best fighting the best. Not reruns and rehashes of previous fights. So that's my thought on it.
Totally agree, man. And on that thought, we're going to wrap it up there. We've hit the hour mark, so that brings the end to this week's podcast. I want to thank you for joining me again, and I want to thank everybody for, you know, tuning in, leaving comments, hitting the like button, sharing the video, subbing to the channel. Big up to everybody. Hit that 7 mark. So yeah, thank you everybody. And we've got one more for the year, and we're going to be doing like a end of year special. So I want you guys to get involved again. Everybody in the chat, everybody watching. Come down and let us know who you think gets your fighter of the year, knockout of the year, etc. We'll be going through ours, and yeah, it'll be good. A nice way to round off a year. So thank you. Big up Jamie as well. We'll leave this as the last comment. He's put Merry Christmas, great show as per. Yeah, for sure. It's Christmas Eve today, man. So hopefully, yeah. Big up you, Jamie. Have a Merry Christmas, and everybody in the chat with your families. Hope you enjoy. Got Volts UK here as well. He's put salute guys. When's the next live? Well, I'll be going on live on Sunday, and then we'll be going live again on this Thursday. So I'll be back on Sunday. But big up, man. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And Lloyd, do you want to close it out?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody for watching and supporting the show. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks to everybody who's got you up to the 700 subs. And a Merry Christmas to each and all.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Have a good evening.